Charlie, what I'll miss most is seeing you striding through that studio door with that beautiful smile and easygoing manner. I'll miss your quiet dignity, the fatherly advice you always gave me, your kindness to others, and the gentleness of your soul. But Charlie, what bothers me the most is I never had the chance to say goodbye. So long, old friend. You'll always be in my heart.
Charlie, I remember all the good times too, and some that weren't so good. But when I think of you, I think of that day. It was 18 degrees in Somerville, and we took off in a hot air balloon, and we just soared all over the low country and had a great time. I remember the hot air balloon and that day.
There are a couple of things I'll always remember about Charlie. One, you just don't keep the same job in this business for 44 years in the same place. So his sense of service, and two, his sense of humor.
I was thinking of the last joke Charlie told us. He was so much fun, and he always had a joke to tell us. But he was also such a professional. He'd sit on the midday set, and I could tell he was watching us. Charlie took pride in our product, and he had a keen competitive spirit. He'd help us, encourage us.
Good evening. Thanks for being with us. We've come here tonight for a celebration of life.
You know, that sounds a little bit strange since we're here to remember Charlie, but, you know, that's really the way Charlie would have wanted it, I think.
A celebration of over 50 years of memories of Charlie's families, his television family right here at Channel 5.
And foremost, you, his Low Country family, the people that he visited with every night.
Tonight it's Charlie's turn to remember. We sat down with Charlie a little while back, and Charlie reminisced. It all started with WCSC Radio. It was December 12, 1945.
Federal worker. I was employed by the U.S. Army. I was activated December 1940 and served till December 1945 with the U.S. Army Field Artillery. I went through all of the enlisted grades, including First Sergeant. I received a field promotion toward the end of the war of Second Lieutenant. And as a First Sergeant, I supervised the 110-man howitzer operation and had to know all the various jobs that they had to do. I spent 35 months overseas, 4 major battle campaigns in both Pacific and European theaters, and I was decorated with 2 decorations, one out of stupidity and one out of carelessness. And that's so much for my war experience. And I came right out of the Army, still in uniform, and went to work for WCSC Radio. I came here because my father was employed at the shipyard during the war, and he died while I was overseas. And I came here to see my mother, and just by accident, thought, well, while I'm here, I'll go up to this radio station. And they put me to work. Well, I had the qualifications being, will you work for 50 cents an hour? And I thought, why not? It's something to do. Not just really about the way it was of falling into something. In years. I came here right after the war. In fact, I came to work still in uniform. I had no civilian clothes. And I didn't have the money to buy them either, come to think of it. My first suit was $19. I still remember that. Palm Beach suit for $19. That's what happened back in that period. I met and married my first wife. She was an Army nurse while we were overseas. I met her toward the end of the war in Europe. We were married in Luxembourg. Had 28 years together before she died 18 years ago now. A son and daughter out of that marriage. I joined the staff of WCSC Radio December 12, 1945 until June 19, 1953. Staff announcer, 3 years, early morning man, typical staff announcing duties. June 19th, 1953. Yeah, full time. Doing a 40-hour week. Yeah, doing a 60-hour week. Yeah, because you pull transmitter shifts and a few other things. Signed the station on for 3 years, 6 every morning, worked till 12:30. Selected music for the morning show. You selected your own music then, and did the typical things that radio announcers did. There were only 2 radio stations in town in those days, and radio announcers were in great demand to MC beauty contests and school functions and so forth. There were only about 6 or 8 announcers in the whole city. So that would have been a period of approximately seven years before television started. And the coincidence was I kiddingly told one of our girls, when we were on the telephone, one of our girls back in copy, she said, "You have a nice voice on the phone." I said, "Well, I know I'm going to be an announcer." And she went to Mr. Rivers and said, "I hear Charlie's going to be an announcer. You know, rumors get around the TV station." He came to me and said, "I hear you're going to be an announcer." I said, "Oh, really?" And I had the good fortune to work with a graduate from the University of Florida who had majored in speech correction. And I worked every night with him for a long, long while, Wayne Poucher, and he tutored me along. I would record network announcers and try to emulate their speech and their delivery. Put my recording on one turntable and them on another, and just sort of learn from listening to the network and trying to copy them. Then when an opening came, I got a chance to slide from the control room into announcing. I got in it really just as a lark. I thought it would look good on my resume for future honest work. But then it just continued to go on, and I continued to get good things continued to happen to me, and I fell in love with this area. And I got a few raises just at the right time to keep me here. Things were scripted and formatted. There was no such thing as a disc jockey, and there was no such thing as air personalities as such. We even had scripted record shows, like the Bing Crosby show, and you'd read a script to introduce a Bing Crosby record. And we had libraries on large transcriptions of music, and they would syndicate these scripts and send them to you, and you could pull out a script and pull out the right music and present a program. Everything was done a la the network then, very formal, and it was sort of the end of old radio, I think. But I never really seriously sought to leave here after I was here a while. I knew I did not want to become the nomadic type of individual that I kept running into who'd been in radio for 3 years and worked at 5 stations. You know, I kept watching those guys being auditioned, and I thought, that's not for me. I want to settle somewhere, and I've never regretted settling here.
Let's fast forward now a little bit. Radio was beginning to wane. A new medium was coming on strong. It was hot, but it was still in its infancy. On June 19th, 1953, the Lowcountry would see the face behind that magic voice.
The television station signed on June 19th, 1953, and I signed the station on. I read the sign-on and the call letters and the opening line for the television station.
Channel 5 is now alive.
As we began to jockey for position, by we I mean the radio people who were transferring to the upcoming TV operation, one fellow had his eye on news, one fellow had his eye on sports, and I became interested in radio and in the weather for many purposes because of some flying experience, and I began to go to the Weather Bureau office about 6 months before we signed on, watch them put together maps, hurricane tracking charts, all that on-hands information. And Mr. Cummings would just allow me to come out there and live out there. And I did that every afternoon since I had the morning shift. So when we signed on, I did the first weather program on the station, and I've been doing them ever since, on an average of 2 a day. In 1956, we were on I was also, in addition to weather person, I was the first production supervisor we had at the station. And you know what those duties involved, those training and hiring and training personnel for the studio operation. So I did that. That's another one of the hats I wore in addition to being the weather person. I look at the list of things I was doing at the same time. I don't know why I'm not crazier than I am right now, because and I did that for 3 years, from 1953 to 1956. And in 1956, I was appointed the program department manager from 1956 to 1972 for 16 years. And that involved the buying and scheduling, syndicated programming, listening to pitches from salespeople, auditioning on-air talent, scheduling on-air talent, still overseeing production people, still doing 2 weather programs a day, and in between in my spare time doing live commercials. It was common in those days to wear 2 hats, at least 2 or 3 in some cases. It was in a sense a leave of absence because I fully intended when she passed on to eventually come back. But since they didn't give a leave of absence in those days, I just resigned. And then I came back and announced that I'm coming back into Charleston television, and I'm coming here first, and this is what I want. 1975 would have been the...
And you were out for what?
Double bypass. 30, no, I was out 30 days. And they took the vein, out of my leg for the bypass. So now every time I see a pretty girl, my heart beats fast, my left leg jumps real fast. It starts kicking. I mean, if you ever see that leg kicking like that, that's because of that.
In spite of all the things that he had done up until this time, there are still just two words that go together, Charlie and weather. And even though Charlie wore many hats, weather was his first love. Who can forget that dark September day in 1989?
At the time, it was, when we were ordered by the station owner, who was also the manager, but more importantly, he was the man who owned this place, and we were ordered at 4 o'clock that afternoon when we saw that satellite picture and knew that storm was within 3 hours of, the peripheral winds were within 3 hours of striking our area. And our engineers needing 3 hours to get out of this building, which is only 9.5 feet above mean low water. When he came and gave me the order, we have to leave this building. Not once, not twice, but on 3 occasions, and the third occasion was a shouting match. No, I don't want to go, let's stay here another 2 or 3 hours, and he wouldn't allow it. At the time, I was very, very upset, but in retrospect, I met quite a number of people who say that by my following our own advice to evacuate the peninsula for low-lying buildings, that probably did more good than staying on the air. In fact, I was chased down by a man while I was going over the bridge one day. He followed me. I stopped at the service station. He pulled up behind me. He said, "I've been chasing you for several miles." And I thought, "Oh, what is this?" And he walked up and he grabbed my hand while I was still putting gas in the car. He said, "I told my wife if I ever saw you, I was going to stop you and shake your hand." And I said, "For what?" He said, "For saving our lives." And he pointed out that his house on Sullivan's Island was totally demolished. And he said he had planned, he and his wife had discussed it, they planned to stay there until they saw Charlie all leave. And this guy was dead serious. That would have to be the highlight of all of the Hugo experiences for me. To me, knowing that what I did or didn't do, at least the action that was taken, was well-founded advice for us to leave, and somebody reacted to that, and they themselves left the low-lying beaches, and he came back to a totally demolished house, and they would have likely lost their lives. I think the outstanding sight in my mind for in the Hugo experience was seeing that bumper-to-bumper traffic leaving and heading back inland, going west on I-26. That was a beautiful, beautiful sight. To know that people did in fact really leave, and the loss of life was so slim. And I think all the broadcast media, everyone did an excellent, excellent job. And the opportunity afforded people who had never probably in their lives before, and maybe never again, the opportunity to do what they did, our news department, those people that rose to the surface and did things they were incapable of doing. Because I'd turned into a viewer after the storm. I'd done all I could do, and I needed several days to recuperate from it myself. And I watched, and I was never more proud of people that you just didn't think they had it in them, and they had it there all the time. They rose to the surface. And those 19 days were, I think, probably the best in the history of this station that I remember.
We learned that just as Hugo was more than wind, rain, and destruction, Charleston and the Low Country are more than a city or an area on a map.
The highlight of my weather coverage has been the opportunity to fly with the Navy, with the Air Force, and with NOAA's weather reconnaissance aircraft into the eye of hurricanes, which I've done with all three of those branches. I did that many years ago, in preparation for documentaries to help educate the public about hurricanes. I did a lot of those over the years, a lot of those documentaries that may or may not have been of some benefit when Hugo came. I don't know, but that was one of the most satisfying accomplishments I think I've done in television, because just because I like doing it.
Yeah, need the rain, so don't complain. Hey, that's a Valentine rhyme there, isn't it? Being a survivor this long in a business where people don't survive very long is I take a little bit of inside personal pride. I wouldn't want this for broadcast, but I have survived 3 station owners. I've survived 7 station managers and 13 news directors. And I've done that only because my audience acceptance has remained quite high in the area. And that's the only reason. And so it's clear to me who I'm working for. And it was clear to me quite some time ago that without being tuned in by the audience, you ain't got nothing. That's where it is. And I'm not so naive as to believe that anybody keeps me here because they like me. It's because the ARD says that I'm still acceptable. And even in my ancient age, I'm still acceptable. And I'm counting on that lasting until this present contract runs out at least, and then maybe even thereafter.
The television lens is brutal. It can spot a phony in an instant. It can also capture the feelings of someone speaking from the heart with love. This is Charlie.
I don't have a brag wall. When it got burned down at my house 12 years ago, I haven't started another one, and I've thrown out stuff that they're just sort of meaningless. I've received awards. The first one in 1954 was a Weather Bureau award. It was called the Weather Bureau then, and it was a service award, public service award for Hurricane Hazel coverage that we did. That's the first one that I had framed and kept. I think it's the first one I received because we'd only been on the air a little more than a year. As to why, at the bottom there, Charlie, the only hook I think you've got, just as a suggestion, is that I am probably, and you could check to find out by a few phone calls, the senior most active on-air weathercaster. If you say weathercaster instead of talent, because there may be some old Broadway people still bouncing around doing commercials or something, but I'm probably a senior in terms of length of continuous service, which in June of this coming year will be 40 years in television, plus the 7 in radio. And I have no plans whatsoever to retire. My ambition is to serve at least 3 years beyond my present contract, which would give me 50 years in broadcasting. And then I might seek honorable employment somewhere. And I'll decide by then whether I really like this or not. Because this has all just been a sort of a probationary period until something better came along, and something better never came along, and so I'm still sitting here. It's just like the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. They were stupid of me to get them. You know, I didn't like them then, and in retrospect, it was real dumb. I don't tell many people about it. I've showed it to my daughter, and she has it in her safety deposit box. She thinks there's something, but I know it was a stupid damn thing for me to do. And with the mature knowledge that I have now, I would never, ever do that again. But at the time, you're young and gung-ho. We had a guy that was sleeping in an ammunition trench where we buried our ammunition. And the reason I knew he was there, because I never dug a foxhole all the time I was in Europe. I'd just get on with the ammunition. It was already dug in, you know, in the trenches, and you could sit down there at night if you were shelled. You know, if you're going to get hit by a shell, you're going to get blown up anyhow, right? So I never, in the whole 13 months in Europe, I never dug a hole. And I knew he was still in this hole when we got march order. He didn't hear us leaving. So I ran back to get him, and the ammunition depot next to us, where the people hadn't buried their ammo stuff, went off. And we got hit by flying crates and some shrapnel and stuff, he and I. And he was seriously wounded. It was nothing for me. I didn't turn in the hospital with him today. But he was very seriously hurt, because he was the last one to run. At least I had enough sense to start running after I went back to get him. But it was just a dumb thing to do. Anyhow, you do dumb things when you're young and stupid. Charlie, I can't think of anything else. April 1st. That's a thrilling day, April 1st. 1924. My current contract will end December 31st, 1994, at which time I will be 70 and a half. And will be eligible for Social Security regardless of my income. See, I'm still paying into Social Security just like the rest of you. Every week, boom, I pay into the thing, which I'm not real thrilled about, but I do. So, depending on what my cosmetic situation is by then and my health and a lot of other things, I intend to stay active. I don't intend to ever totally retire until I go to the big TV set in the sky. And from what I hear, there are very few stations up there because there are very few camera persons and almost no program people up there at all. I mean, there are only 2 or 3 small stations. And they have, and the tough thing is, they have a surplus of weathermen up there. So it's going to be tough for me to get a job once I get up there because nearly all of them go up there.
You know, one of Charlie's dreams was to celebrate 50 years of service to you. Well, that dream came true in 1994. That's when we celebrated Charlie's 50th year in broadcasting.
And happily, all of that was right here at WCSC, first in radio and then in television. It's a record few, if any, broadcaster anywhere in the country will ever achieve. Look back now with us and remember.
Anybody would really be a fool not to enjoy this day. I've had a lot of happy days with all of you, but this is certainly one of the top. Incidentally, for those of you that are curious, my present agreement will expire December 31st in the year 2004. Now, that's only 10 years away, and all of you are invited back for my 60th because you all look in good health, and I think you'll make it to then. But in case I'm not here by then, there's nothing I would enjoy more than spending eternity in television, except I've heard recently there is no TV station in heaven because there are no news directors. Some of you have the question, I can tell by looking at your face, when's this old guy going to finally retire? Well, I'll share my views on retirement with you. Of the few people I know who have retired, they've retired for a number of reasons. Number one, they were tired of what they were doing. Well, I'm not tired. Or number two, they didn't like what they were doing. I still like what I'm doing. Or number three, they wanted to move somewhere else. I don't want to move somewhere else. I'm one of those rare individuals, I suppose, who's happy. And if I retired after I caught the first fish, painted the first room, and mowed the first yard, what would I do the other 3 days? Besides, Stacy's made it very clear she married me for better or for worse, but not for lunch. So, speaking of Stacy, I must share you this story with you very quickly. I know we're running long. Many years ago, we were dating. We parked one moonlit evening on the Battery, sipping a little glass of wine. That's when it was legal to sit on the Battery and sip a glass of wine. And she leaned over to me and said, "Charlie, we have to get married." So being the gentleman that I was, I married her. And you know, 18 and a half years ago, that baby hasn't been born yet. Now, I know she wouldn't lie. It's just an exceptionally long gestation period, but I'll be a father any time now. Now, I hope you enjoy that joke because that's going to cost me tonight for dinner. When you get in the gray-haired set, retrospection takes over, at least it has with me, and I sometimes ask myself, why am I here? And to be very honest with you, I don't think I'm here because Hutch loves me or Jim loves me, though I'm a very lovable person. But I don't think I'm here for that reason. In wondering why I'm here, I've survived a lot of changes in this industry, a lot of changes in types of equipment and people and the way we operate, demands made upon us by the public. And when I look back on somebody that had time to do this, not working hard enough apparently, he tells me in the time we've been on the air, we've had 16 news directors, 9 general managers, and 4 owners. That makes me think I've survived something. And as corny as this may sound, it comes back to serving the public. If we don't have an audience, we ain't got a job, because the only guy listening would be the transmitter engineer if he was awake. So serving the public and getting close to the public is the closest thing I think any of us can find to job security. So it's more than a rating with me. It's real serious business. I can't fully express how I feel here, but thank all of you.
Charlie started in radio and spoke the first words on Channel 5. But it was Charlie's dream to join his Channel 5 family in our new building. Charlie will be with us only in spirit when we move into this new facility later this year. But part of his dream came true when he turned the first shovel of dirt right here just a few months ago.
The last one I attended was the fall of 1952 down on East Bay near Charlotte. And to see us leaving that area and moving out here is terrific, finally.
Oh, man, I think that he'll be around here forever. You know, you can almost feel him in the rafters, as Lauren said one night. Yeah. And I guess we're just all privileged to have known Charlie. He never changed.
He still seems to be here. You know, I was talking with Stacy just a few minutes ago, Charlie's widow, and she says, we had a great ride. We had 20-plus years together. And Charlie, you gave us all a great ride. You were a true gentleman and a gentleman, and we'll never forget that.
He was so much a part of our family here, and I was thinking, we spent 20 years with Charlie every single day, and almost more time than we actually spent with our own family. So he was like my TV dad, and it was a very serious business, but as you see, he had fun with it, and he was a great guy.
He was.
You know, I think what really brought a lot of this into focus for especially those of us here who are our age is that because he had that father figure about him, it began to really make us understand how close our own folks are to that point in their lives and how that whole circle of life comes about. And all we can ever hope to do now is be that kind of example for the others that come through, because even though Charlie's not here, he's the reason Channel 5 is alive, and we've got to be the standard bearers of that idea. I got the kindest call from a gentleman from Walterboro just over the weekend, and he said, we just want to let you know that we're really sorry we've lost our friend.
There you go. That's it.
And that pretty much just encapsulated it all for me, because he didn't just know one or two of us. A lot of us felt like we really knew him in the best and closest of ways. In life, Charlie never sought the spotlight.
And he didn't want to be remembered with fanfare.
So as we say goodbye to our father figure, our friend, let each of us,
in our very own way, remember Charlie as we observe this moment of silence.